The governing body claims to speak on behalf of God, but even men claiming divine backing are terrified. Here are the final 3 of the 12 greatest fears of the governing body. These are the deepest and most dangerous truths that they cannot say out loud. We count down from 3 to 1. Stay tuned as we get to number 1, which is their greatest fear of all. We are looking at what the fear is, why they fear it, and what they do to make sure that that fear is not realized. Welcome to Tell Me Dr. K, a channel in which we discuss matters of theological nature, no matter how difficult, complex, or uncomfortable they might be. Because on Tell Me Dr. K, no question, no topic is off limit. So in the past 3 episodes, we have looked at 9 fears out of the governing body's 12 greatest fears. Fear number 12, worldly temptations and moral freedom. Fear number 11, the fear of other Christian denominations, which they call Babylon the Great. Fear number 10, media exposure and investigations. That's what we covered in episode 1. In episode 2, we covered the following. Fear number 9, stagnation and loss of youth. Fear number 8, outside friendships, what they call bad associations. So these fears in episode 2 covered the internal fears. Fears in the first episode covered external fears. So fear number 7, higher education. Then in episode 3, we covered the following fears: internet and unfiltered information, independent thinking or dissent, and apostates and whistleblowers. So those are the fears that we looked at, which the governing body fears. And why do they fear? Because of being a cult. There are certain truths that the governing body would not want their members to know about. And these are the things that make the governing body terrified, to say the least. So let's count down now to the final 3 fears. Why do they fear these 3 fears? Because if these fears come true, the entire structure of the watchtower begins to collapse. Let's go now to fear number 1, the Jehovah's Witnesses' greatest fear of all fears. This one, every time you watch JW broadcasting, regular JW broadcastings, monthly broadcastings, this is brought up. The fear of economic independence and secular success. So what is the fear here? That witnesses will get financial stability and independence through education and career growth or success. That they will no longer need the organization for identity, support, or belonging. So what the governing body has done is look for people going through existential issues of life, people that need stability in their lives, people that have undergone loss, people who are going through emotional trauma, emotional turmoil. Bring them together, give them a purpose, give them a meaning, and give them identity. And then, after giving them identity, then create a sense of belonging and ensure that these people remain within that circle of what they call the brotherhood. Now, by isolating the members away from the rest of the world, they can totally control them. And now they threaten them with 2 issues, one spiritual, the other one physical. The spiritual one is that if you don't obey the governing body, you'll be destroyed at Armageddon.
All of us recognize the last days are going from bad to worse. Jehovah told us that was going to be the case. The subject we're going to have this morning a discussion about, I thought we'd discuss the final end of God's enemies. So it can be very encouraging, albeit sobering. And to help us with it, there's a beautiful expression here in the 37th Psalm. So find that 37th Psalm, and how encouraging to meditate on this beautiful verse, verse 20. But the wicked will perish, the enemies of Jehovah will vanish like glorious pastures, they will vanish like smoke. So Since they're Jehovah's enemies and Jehovah's our best friend, that means they're our enemies. How we look forward to these enemies of Jehovah, our enemies, vanishing. So I thought this would be a nice memory aid to this verse stay in the mind. Here's what Jehovah's promising. As Jehovah's enemies, they're going to vanish like smoke.
The other one, if you disobey the governing body, you are going to be disfellowshipped. Therefore, you are going to be all by yourself, alone in the world. You lose your family, you lose your friends, you lose your community. The governing body's power is in ensuring that members have no outside social contacts beyond the Watchtower Society. That's why they talk about bad association. Here's the clip.
Do not be misled. Bad associations spoil useful habits. Okay, but what's good associations?
Well, we have wholesome gatherings with our brothers and sisters from the congregation. And we eat and talk, and some like to play musical instruments, and they'll do renditions of original songs. And we have a really nice time.
Yeah, I don't do that.
It's not boring.
Sure it's not.
Well, what do you do?
Yeah, you wouldn't do that. It's not exactly wholesome. But you gotta have fun, right?
True. And we do. See for yourself. I'm having some people over this weekend. Why don't you come?
It wasn't the club, but it was still fun.
We must know Jehovah well. That means knowing his thinking on matters. We should welcome such an examination and make any necessary changes. For example, let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 33 together. Here we read, "Do not be misled. Bad associations spoil useful habits." As familiar as that principle is, can you think of an area in your life where it's difficult to apply?
Hey, John. I know it's not your usual, but there's no one to entertain those clients tonight, so can you do it? Thanks.
Great.
Till then, it wasn't my usual thing. But I need to support my family. And these aren't really my friends. I can handle it. I think.
We're faced with bad associations in subtle ways. This may require us to ask additional questions of ourselves.
Disfellowshipping, shunning, whatever new term they are using now, is only a powerful weapon if members have no social contacts with the outside world. So, economic independence and secular success makes members not to be dependent on the organization for support, for identity, support, and belonging. So that's why this is their fear number one. Why do they fear it? Because financial security leads to intellectual and emotional autonomy. Because success in the secular world removes leverage of guilt and obligation. Because a self-sufficient person is harder to manipulate. The governing body doesn't just want your loyalty, they want your dependence. So how do they prevent this from happening? By discouraging higher education and promoting manual labor. By glorifying pioneers who remain poor but spiritually rich. So they'll tell you, no long-term thinking. Stephen Lett has talked about if you go in a hotel, you don't start refurbishing that hotel because you are not going to stay there for long. So they are so focused on short-term thinking, no long-term focus, no planning for the future. So several of Stephen Lett's broadcastings talk about members should not have a long-term focus. They are sojourners. They are just passing by. There is a better home somewhere. They shouldn't focus on today.
But what's the voice of strangers of this world on this subject? Exert yourself vigorously to acquire material possessions. Pursue things that will make your life comfortable, because that is what will bring you happiness. The question is, to whom are we listening? Jehovah and Jesus tell us to be content now with a spiritual paradise and to concentrate on our life-saving preaching work, and that they will provide a physical paradise later. 1 Peter 2:11 indicates that we should view ourselves as temporary residents who are just passing through this old system and headed for the real life in the new world. What do we mean by temporary resident? Well, imagine that you rent an old house to live in while a new, beautiful house is being built for you. You'll live there only a few months. Would you install a new concrete driveway? Would you put in new electrical wiring and plumbing? Would you install brand new vinyl siding? No. You might do a few cosmetic things to make your stay a little more comfortable, but you wouldn't do anything major. Why? Because you know you're just a temporary resident and that soon you'll move into your beautiful new home. Well, if we think of ourselves just as temporary residents in this old system, it'll be a real protection against the materialism that is promoted by the voice of strangers. Now, if we think about Jesus' words in today's text, give us today our bread for this day, there's really indirect counsel against materialism. See, Jesus didn't say to pray for our daily meat or some other luxury food item. He didn't even say that we should pray for a month's supply of bread. Pray for and be content with our bread for the day. But as we know, a sizable number of Jehovah's people today are being distracted by materialism. So since this is not an imagined, but it's a real danger to Jehovah's people, let's discuss the theme, beware of the power of materialism.
As I get older, who will care for me? Have you ever asked yourself similar questions? Has this uncertainty made you anxious or fearful? Such feelings can make it hard to think clearly. But these feelings can go away when we realize that we are well prepared. The Apostle Peter wrote his letters during times of trials and instability. And Peter, who was getting older, may have wondered how he and other elderly ones would be cared for later in life. He may have perceived that Aging and declining health could create uncertainty and fear in some. What did the Apostle Peter recommend in view of future uncertainties? So did Peter tell the brothers and sisters to stockpile money or supplies? No. He encouraged them to strengthen their faith and trust in Jehovah. There are no uncertainties for Jehovah. He had promised to protect the Christians in the first century, and he would provide salvation.
Now, what is a contradiction, serious contradiction, is that whilst the governing body is telling members not to have a long-term focus, not to focus on building a house, they have been building massive infrastructure. Jehovah's Witnesses are a real estate corporation with billions of dollars. How do they prevent this? Number 3, by suggesting that worldly ambition is selfish and displeases Jehovah. Number 4, by building the idea that only the Jehovah's Witnesses organization can offer true purpose. Here's a real story. I left at 28 with no degree, no savings, no network. It took years to rebuild my life, and they wanted it that way. So this dependence that is created is to make sure that you cannot survive on your own outside the organization. And those that go out, and because of the heavy weight of this isolation, some attempt suicide, others commit suicide, they get addicted to drugs, alcoholism, and all sorts of vices. And that validates the governing body's claim about the importance of remaining within the organization. Members are dead scared to leave the organization. First, they are afraid that when Armageddon comes, they will die. Second, they are afraid that they will lose their social contacts. They will be all by themselves. So the governing body fears that members will stop surviving and start thriving. Because freedom isn't just physical, it's financial. So what do they fear? They fear that members will find out their predictions failed. That you stop obeying without question. That you build a life so rich they can't shame you into returning. The governing body fears losing grip, their image, their followers, their power. And when enough people stop fearing them, that's when the watchtower truly begins to fall. There you are. That marks the end of the series on the governing body's 12 greatest fears that could collapse the Watchtower Society. If you're finding this discussion interesting, kindly do me a favor. Like, subscribe, and smash the notice bell so that when I upload another video, you'll receive a notification. If you have any questions, you want to challenge whatever I've said in this video, kindly put it in the comments below. If you think that somebody else will benefit from the information in this video, kindly share with him or her. You can share with as many people as you want. If you have not watched any of the 3 episodes that I've produced, click on this link to watch other videos talking about the collapse of Jehovah's Witnesses. Click on this link.